to the meeting. We are back from executive session. Do you need a time at 6:03? Is that noted in the agenda? I don't know if we need a time. It's 6:03. But I would now invite the presentation of the colors by the JROTC.
Guard, attention. Carry, colors. Forward, march. Ready, post. Present, arms.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red arms bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Order, arms, post.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
You get that? Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Chestnut.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from October 17th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Comments? Questions? Call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the special board meeting October 23rd, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Comments? Questions? Call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Mr. Spicer, would you like to introduce our guests?
I would. Thank you so much. President Chestnut, members of the board, our audience. We have many presentations this evening. Our first presentation is Mr. Gary Knepp with our Veterans Day program.
I want to thank you very much for your continuing support of veterans. They're a very important part of our community, and I'm glad to see that we have responded over the years in the way we have. Those who are veterans, could you please identify yourselves so we could give you proper thanks? Thank you for your military service and your continuing service to the community. A lot of veterans are very actively involved in their community afterwards, and sometimes we forget to remind them of that. Tonight, I would like to make a presentation on the war in Korea. The Korean War has been called a number of things over the years, but I want to remind you that Averell Harriman said of the war that it was a sour little war. It certainly was sour, but it wasn't little. Over 4 million people within 3 years, both combatants and civilians, were killed during the war, 4 million. Of those, 336,000 were U.S. Servicemen and women, of which 19 were from Claremont County. 103,000 were wounded in action, and an additional 7,900 were missing in action, and some of them still are in North Vietnam, or Korea, waiting for repatriation. The war began on June 6, 25, 1950. 135,000 North Koreans attacked across the Han River and into Seoul, and they basically crushed the South Koreans. It didn't look like they were going to survive very long. The United States intervened via a UN resolution rather than a declaration of war. America thought that since they had just won the Second World War, that this would be an easy task. They thought that probably they would go for a few days and maybe a week, grab a handful of medals and a bunch of stories to tell back in Tokyo. It didn't quite work out that way. We sent an original expedition of 400 men against 135,000. We did not send any tanks, no high explosive shells that could have broken into the tanks. Our M1 rifles were pitted and couldn't fire straight. Our ammunition, our BAR ammunition, blew up in their faces. Bazookas bounced off the tanks, bazooka shells, and the radios couldn't be contacted between the air and the ground. It was a total mess. Our men were put into an impossible situation. With as hard as they could, they broke, and then with the term they used, it was a bug out. They left as quickly as they could. We decided to send additional troops from Tokyo, or surrounding area. Many of those men were captured by the POW, by the North Koreans at this point. You were captured. It was much like the Bataan Death March. No food, little water. If you didn't walk fast enough, you got stabbed by a bayonet or shot in the back of the head and dropped and never seen again. Then, whether these were more unfortunate or not, a number were sent to POW camps. There was a John Pates, who was a recent graduate of Loveland High School. He was training to be an Olympic swimmer at the 1,500 meters. He was a member of the 19th U.S. Infantry. He was captured when his unit was overrun. He was taken to Seoul and then marched further north and put on a train. While on the train, he was strafed by American pilots who didn't know that the POWs were on the train. The North Koreans took the train inside a tunnel at Suncheon and waited for the planes to leave. They then marched the men out, gave them rice bowls, and told them it was time to eat. And they turned the burp guns on them and killed nearly 300 Americans. Only one survived, and all of them are still buried in cemeteries in North Korea. I just recently learned another name, and I'm still researching to find out more information. His name is James J. Roberts. He lived at Laurel Avenue in Milford for a period of time. I know not much more about him, except that he was enlisted in the Army. He was captured. He was taken to Nanpo in North Korea and died about 2 months afterwards in dysentery. And he was rolled up in a blanket and set in the earth, and again, his remains have not returned. The Army's retreated south, hoping to buy time with ground and with bodies so that they could to get the troops together. One of the men was named Lou Lastly. He grew up in Tennessee. He did not graduate from high school. He enlisted in the Army at the end of World War II and then stayed in and became an MP. He decided he wanted to go to Japan. He had heard what a great place it was. And when he got to Japan, he told this grizzled sergeant that I was here as a military policeman, and the guy said, "We don't need any policemen, so we're going to give you a rifle, and you get about 10 minutes to train on it, and now you're a rifleman in the 27th U.S. Infantry, who were known as the Wolfhounds. Leslie Liu was one of those guys who really loved Korea. I was talking to him about it, and he said that he had enough money that he had a house servant who could keep his clothes clean, to work on the house. The beer was $1 a bottle, and he thought that was real good, but especially he thought the girls in China and Japan were very nice looking and very nice. He was called on duty to go up north near Fujiyama to do some maneuvers. After he was done that, he got an order from the Army that says, grab your gun, your canteen, and your ammunition, and get on this train and go to Tokyo right away. As he stopped along the trail, he found somebody on the train. He could open up a window and talk to a Japanese woman. He asked her what was happening, and she told him, war, war. And he says, where's the war? And she said, Korea. When he looked over at his buddy, he said, where the hell is Korea? Which I think was the case with a lot of Americans in those days. They had no idea where this war was going to be fought. The 27th Infantry was one of the best units in Korea. They received 2 presidential unit citations, which was very unusual. And they were known as a fire brigade. Because the enemy could have broke through at any point, at any time, these brigades, these men, were fought all night, put on tractor trailers and jeeps and whatever they could move them to another spot and fought off the enemy again. And Lou said, Gary, to this day I couldn't tell you where I was during those 3 weeks because I just kept moving around. I didn't know what happened to it. It looked like the U.S. was going to lose. The last stand was at Pusan. Everybody was thinking this is going to be the Dunkirk that nearly lost World War II. But somehow they managed to hold on and brought in more men. Douglas MacArthur, who was the commanding officer in the Army at that time, they pulled off a brilliant amphibious landing at Incheon. With a bust out from Pusan, they pushed the enemy back across the 38th parallel, back into North Korea. And then they decided that they were going to go a little further and topple the regime to establish an anti-communist regime up north. They didn't pay attention to any of the warnings that they were receiving through Chinese sources and others that the Chinese were about to intervene. Ground troops were finding Chinese, and they're telling them that the officers that this was going to happen, but nobody paid any attention. On 11/25, the winds from the Manchurian plains roared down, bringing it with it dropping temperatures that went from 20 to 30 to 40 degrees below zero. 18 inches of snow accompanied it. Just try to imagine yourself out there in 30 degrees below zero weather with wind blowing, snow coming down, and still in your summer uniforms because they hadn't given the men their winter uniforms. And then you had to fight a battle. On one night, it was a black night. The wind was rushing again through where they were, and then they heard these horrible sounds. Bugles, whistles, horns of all kinds, cymbals banging, people screaming. It was the end. It was 300,000 Chinese who were attacking their positions, outnumbering some of our men in positions 8 to 10 to 1. Some of our men didn't get out of their sleeping bags. The Chinese ran by them and stabbed them and killed them in their sleeping bags. It was a horrible night. The American military was battered terribly. The 2nd Infantry Division, which was along the Chongchong River, was just absolutely battered. One newspaper reporter suggested that if you know anyone in Korea, write them a letter. If you know anyone in the 2nd Infantry Division, pray for them. The Marines were cased around a place called Chosin Reservoir, and they again received sometimes attacks by groups of men that were 10, 12 to 1. The wind blew in there as well, and the temperatures were dropping. The plan was to bring all the troops back from out in the hinterland and bring them closer so they can then remove them to the coastline and retreat. A newspaper reporter heard that the Marines were getting ready to retreat. They said, "What is this? Marines don't retreat. They attack." And the commanding officer said, "You're right, retreat hell, we're attacking in a different direction." There was one strategic spot that if it was taken by the Chinese, the entire thing would collapse. So they sent 420 men, 240 men, and the Fox Company, 7th Marines, to Tactong Pass, told them hold at all costs, do not let go, and marched 7 miles to get there into this big pass. Again, 30 to 40 degrees below zero and getting worse. It was so cold that they couldn't dig foxholes because the ground was too stiff. The only protection they would have is taking the Chinese bodies that they had killed and stacking them up and using them to protect from bullets. The Marine carbines were not powerful enough to punch through the Chinese vests, and so instead of one shot to the chest, it sometimes took 2, sometimes 3 to bring the enemy down. One man recalled getting a can of peas that he went to eat. They were frozen stiff. He got his spoon out and was grabbing and finally got one pea out. He bit into it and broke his tooth. The medics had to take their morphine syringes and put them in their mouth because otherwise they would freeze up, and not knowing that it could trip very easily and kill themselves as they were running around trying to take care of them. Almost every man had dysentery, which is bad enough as it is, but then again, fighting a battle in these temperatures, it was, you just wonder how these men could survive. They fought the Chinese 4 days and 5 nights. Hundreds of Chinese died. They figured they probably, these 240 men probably faced about 6,000 to 8,000 Chinese during those 4 days. And they made it back. The Army and the Marines made it to Hungnam, which is on the coast, to withdraw. A miracle, they got 100,000 men and their equipment out, and even more so, 100,000 refugees, civilians who were leaving China or leaving North Korea to make it back. There were one ship had, it was named SS Merit of the Victory, had 14,000 people crammed on one ship. I've talked to a survivor of that and said that she stood up for 5 days because they didn't have room to put them. They made it back on Christmas Eve, and they called it a Christmas miracle that 5 babies had been born in those time periods as they made it back. They brought in Matthew B. Ridgway, who was probably the most underrated American general in history, to stabilize things, which he did. And instead of men and machines racing up and down Korean Peninsula, they stopped stalemate in trenches. They fought oftentimes in places, Heartbreak Ridge, Pork Chop Hill, Old Baldy. They were hillside bunkers. They were placed trying to stop them in again, like a World War I situation. The bunkers were made of sandbags and with wooden trusses. 6 to 8 men lived in one of those bunkers. And there were several uninvited guests, house guests, that haunted every one of them. Lots of lice, roaches, and rats, about the size of a chihuahua, that was reported. The rats like to get inside the sleeping bags to stay warm. They literally grabbed food out of the guy's hands. And apparently you could hear them all night tramping around, pitter-pattering around. One night, Bill woke up and he saw this rat right in front of his face and the yellow eyes. He said, "This is enough," and he took out his pistol and shot one of them in the head. That was life in the trench. The battles were differently fought. They weren't massive battles, but small unit actions, still attributed for nearly 1/2 of the casualties. On one night, they would go out on night reconnaissance trips to try to find out what's going on among the enemy. There were no starlight scopes, no night vision goggles. You basically went out there with the light that was available to you. Bill was leading his patrol, walking the point. He had a Thompson machine gun with him that was given to him by a member of the French Foreign Legion who he had fought a battle with, and this guy was his friend, and he gave him that for. They were out, and they were at night, again, dark night, passing an outcropping of rocks when they heard the thump, thump, thump of mortars going off, and illumination flares were going up so that the enemy could see them. At about the same time the flares went up, Bill felt a push in his back, fell down, and got back up again, but he fell down. It wasn't sure exactly how it was. They obviously, the American troops were outnumbered, so they went back to their lines almost immediately. And they started asking questions about, where's Paul Bradley? Nobody could find Paul Bradley. So they got back out and got binoculars and looked up where they thought Paul had fallen, where they were that night. And there he was on the ground, arms outstretched, legs tight, obviously dead. And they went up to get him, but they didn't know if it was North Korean troops or Chinese, because the North Korean troops always booby-trapped American bodies to cause more casualties. So to make sure that they weren't going to get booby-trapped, they took camo wire up, tied it around the legs, and then pulled his body down, and it didn't blow up, so they knew that it was the Chinese they fought that night. Bill immediately began asking questions that many, if not all, combat veterans ask. Why me? Why did I make it and my buddy didn't? And again, it was a question that he never found the answer to, although it haunted him the rest of his life. He decided the way to deal with this issue was to resolve that he would live a life that was worthy of his friend's sacrifice. And I think that's the way a lot of veterans live the rest of their lives as they try to make up and try to understand what happened. They negotiated an armistice, which took place in July 27, 1953. This was an armistice which stopped the fighting. Technically, we are still at war with North Korea. It is the longest war in American history, if you count it that way. And we have 227,500 troops still in Korea. It's along one of the hottest, most disrupted borders in the world right now, so you never know what might happen. When the Korean veterans came home, very few people understood what they went through. They were treated sometimes like the Vietnam veterans were. And you talk to a veteran, you talk to one of these guys, and they said they went into the American Legion bar to get a beer. The guy turned around in the bar stool and asked him where he'd been, and he told him Korea, and the guys turned around and said, "You're losers. I don't want anything to do with it." There were signs up in Cincinnati around restaurants that said, "Dogs and GIs not allowed." These guys had no parades coming home. They just showed up, went to work the next day. They took their memories of Korea, poured them into a vault in their brain, and then didn't deal with them at all for the rest of their life. I started interviewing Korean War veterans in 2010 at the approach of the 60th anniversary. I probably talked to 30 to 40, I have something I know, somewhere around there. And they told me these stories about how they were treated when they got back. And almost all of them never said a word about their experiences at home. Their families didn't know about it. None of their friends knew about it. They too had PTSD and would wake up in the middle of the night screaming because they didn't know what was going on, but nobody paid them attention. Nobody gave them the honor that they deserved. So there was a group of 4 men from this area who wanted to make sure that their friends were remembered, that their stories would be told, and so they grouped together to form an organization to develop a park, a memorial for them, and I'd like to share in a few more minutes with you about the memorial. You ready? Is that the first slide? This is Bill Knapp. I sort of know him. He was he envisioned the development of this park with several other buddies, and that was him in 1950. That's Bill on the left and his son Steve, who was in the Civil Air Patrol. This was the day in 2012 that the memorial was dedicated. That's Lou Lastly that we're talking about. Lou came from Tennessee, moved up here, lived the rest of his life. Lou suffered from frostbitten toes the rest of his life, reoccurring injuries that he sustained during those very cold days. And that's Lou on the left, on the day of dedication to the park. Lou joined up a little bit later, but he became a guardian, what we call the guardian of the park. He was up there nearly every day, taking care of it, talking to people, and it became a really important aspect. That is Robert Sterling. He was one of the other members of the organization that put this together. He was in the Air Force. You can see him there on guard duty. And you can go back one, sorry, you can go back beyond before this one. In reverse. That's Robert Sterling on the right with the medal. These medals were granted or given to the veterans that day by a representative of the South Korean government who became a U.S. citizen as a token of their gratitude for what they did for the country. Okay. This is Ralph Gerardo. I'm sure that a few people remember Ralph. He was a businessman and an activist in the community. He was in the, he was an artilleryman in the 2nd Infantry Division. There's Ralph on the left. He passed away before the dedication of the park. That's his widow, Mary Sue, and his son, Johnny. I refer to him as Johnny D. Many people know him as the Mayor of Milford. Okay. They're receiving a few of the, again on the dedication day, receiving the medal. The gentleman on the left, far left up here, that is Dr. Lee. He was a young man who was in South Korea when the war occurred. He was captured by the North Koreans and forced to join their army. He escaped and went to join the U.S. Army as an interpreter, and then came over here and lived as a doctor in Cincinnati. He was the man who was passing out the medals. Okay. This is a line of the men for the dedication. This is the entrance to the park. The park's name is the Spirit of 76. It's located inside the Miami Meadows Park. You see the stones that are there. This is a phenomenon that we didn't expect. People are leaving offerings, just like they do in Vietnam. Something we haven't expected. I haven't had a chance to ask somebody any questions about, but that's what's going on. There is the pond and the flag garden. One of the important things that we wanted to make sure was that during this park development and later, there would be a continuing relationship between the schools and East Bend. And one of the major fundraisers for this project came from the school children in Milford, including the money for that fountain. Okay? This is a memory of the World War II veterans in Milford. Okay? We also wanted to make sure that this was an educational function, not someplace to play Frisbee or something like that, but that you become educated, learn a little bit about the Korean War. And those are plaques that were developed by the U.S. Army, and they describe the various aspects of the Korean War. That is the monument for the war. Stainless steel, and there is a granite boulder. On that boulder is a representation of a bunker that was built in 1952, lasted about a week before it was hit and destroyed. It's unbelievable that the photograph that was taken, that this was derived from, was the size of a small Kodiak. It was lasered onto that granite. Now it's 6 foot long, very sharp detail. It's just an amazing thing to happen. The circle, not yet. I watch my movements with this. The circle of stone represents the stone hills in the Korean War. One of Bill Knapp knew someone who had a grandson in Korea and asked them to get some soil from Camp Casey, which was a Korean War facility, to bring that back. So each one of the veterans was given a bottle, pill bottle full of soil from the Republic of Korea. And that was buried in that monument and wrapped and pieced together as a symbol of the bond between Korea and the United States. Okay? That's a little bit closer up. That wreath there was unofficial. That was just something that somebody left behind. Okay? You can see the grave markers that surround the monument. Those are grave markers that are dedicated to the 19 men from Milford, from the Claremont County that were killed in the war. This monument is held in reserve in case there are other men that we will discover that may have been killed, that we could take and maybe shoot and take honor of them, and maybe possibly the James Roberts that I mentioned earlier from Laurel Avenue. This marks a monument to the people who supplied, who did contribute the money to this park. No tax dollars were used for this park. It's all by donation from the United States. There's a shot of the pond that our youngsters have. These were benches, again, paid for by each one of the schools. And in the year 2012, the class of that school is listed on that bench. And that bench has the words of some of our famous documents in American history, such as the 10th Amendment, the preamble of the Constitution, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, as a way of marking our important high points in our history. And a shot of Tom, and some guy sitting there. Again, we wanted to try in this to provide a different kind of experience. And I'll give you two examples of people using this as some things that we never thought we'd hear. They have used it as a place to get married and wedding pictures taken. Place for field trips, including schools adjacent to Milford. I'm not sure that Milford's done, but other schools at the time. Constitution Day was held there for a few years, sponsored by the school. One day I was walking around with the township administrator and several others, and we saw this guy with a long lens on the camera, and he was shooting football. And he came up to me and said, "I hope you guys aren't around here messing this place up." No, we're not here to mess it up. What are you interested in? So you probably don't know this, but that pond has more different varieties of dragonflies and damselflies than any place in Southwest Indiana. We're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Two other uses that I thought really illustrate what you never know could happen. A friend told me that she went up to the park to see what was going on, and she saw a man sitting on the bench by himself. So they started talking and realized that he was a Vietnam vet, as her brother was. He suffered from PTSD for many years, but found a group that will help him deal with the issues. Jean's brother was also a sufferer from PTSD. She gave him his telephone number. He went to counseling, and he is in much better shape.
Good.
The coincidence of that happened. Another day, and I'll close with this statement here, this over here. I went up there, and I saw an older woman sitting on a bench looking into the pond, just kind of staring into the pond. I started talking to her a little bit. She told me that she had a friend who was killed in the Korean War. She was from Dayton. She hadn't moved here but 3 or 4 years ago. And she told me that the look on her face, I thought the friend was more than just a casual friend, it must have been somebody pretty close to her, maybe a boyfriend or a fiance. I said, I come here because I feel closer to her. That's the kind of place it's up. And if you haven't been, I invite you to go up and to enjoy if nothing more, the damselflies and the dragonflies. But I think it is a good spot. And if you haven't been there for a little while, I invite you to come back and get it. Thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that if you come across a Korean War vet, I know how much you appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Kaufman, do you want to introduce our young man before we go on to the next presentation?
Yes, I would love to. If I could, just for a second, there are a few things in the world more bone-chilling than hearing taps in person, and there are a few things more difficult in the world than playing taps in front of a room full of people. So thank you, Riker Wright, and as well as Daddy-O and the Cats and our JROTC students for presenting the colors and singing the national anthem. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dr. Arnold, Milford High School principal, to the podium, please.
I use this every day. There we go. I am presenting JROTC. Chief Phillips, First Sarge, come on up. Really quick story. Last year, if you've never been in the high school, we have a huge banner for the national championship team. I told First Sarge that we were going to have to get smaller ones because I see this as something that's going to happen year in and year out. And again, it happened. So congratulations.
All right. We come tonight to recognize back-to-back national champions. This is our 5th national championship in 4 years. We're predicted to win the one in May in Daytona Beach, the fitness championship. If you ever get a chance to come see this, it's massive. 340 teams from across all of America, to include Germany, Puerto Rico, Guam, and South Korea. So it's the best teams from every state that show up for 4 days and suffer and cry and bleed and pay their dues. And these women back here are #1 in the nation. Being in the top team, you get to put in the ultimate Raiders. It's a buddy team. Our buddy team got #1 in the nation. Go ahead and raise your hand, buddy team. They outran and outswam and out-obstacle course, even all the military academies that showed up. It was an obstacle course, then they had to swim in full gear. When we do our 5Ks, it's in boots and equipment. Then they had to get up and do a 2-mile run. And it was 0, dark 30 in the morning. It was nice and chilly. It was very interesting seeing them crawl out of that swimming pool. Then they had to go run, luckily, to get warmed up. So, now, I just want to mention the male team. They got 8th in the nation, and the other male team got 17th. So they did an outstanding job. If you raise your hand, Miss Buck, Miss Davidson, Miss Davis, Miss Dessois, Miss Hopkins, Miss McClugan, Miss Moore, Miss Nolan, by the way, is an 8th grader. She is now a national champion. Miss Sword, Miss Spinelli, Miss Wagner, Miss Wyrick, Miss Fugate, and Miss Nunez. So. Come on up, girls.
You gotta say hi to everybody.
For you guys that don't know, last year both male team and female team won, and they received 28 full ride scholarships to Division I school of their choice. So. All right. Thank you. Thank you, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Aaron Zupka, Athletic Director.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's hard to follow up those two presentations, by the way, so congrats to our JORTC and all the other students being recognized tonight. Congratulations on all your accomplishments. It is my utmost honor to honor another very special, talented group of young ladies here tonight. We have our state qualifying girls cross-country team, and coaches, will you please come up here to the podium so I could recognize, aka embarrass you a little bit. So everyone come on up. Those are nice sweatshirts. I need to get one of those. So I'm all about, it's Thursday. It's Throwback Thursday, right? We got a little TBT for you today. So I was searching in my office. I have all the yearbooks, 1982, 83, class 83. Would anyone go to class 83? Do we have anyone? Nobody? Okay. Well, in 1982, in the fall, you could see was our first girls cross-country team in school history. So that was over 42 years ago. First year, they had enough to field a team, which is 5. Now, they didn't make it through the season. They had injuries, and probably people quit because it's really hard. But 42 years, and we're going to talk tonight, things that haven't been done in 42 years since this program started. So cross-country is really hard. You know, it's a grueling sport, physically, mentally, in every way. I mean, who enjoys running for fun? I mean, that's certainly not me. But Coach Jordan does. But you really have to have a special mentality and dedication, perseverance, and it's an all-year thing. We just finished our season, and our kids are about to get into our polar bear club to run in the winter. So it just shows the dedication, commitment is truly unique. So like I said, first time in 42 years, I'm going to rattle off some accomplishments of things they've done this year. First, we were first place or top in a lot of meets. We won the Lebanon Invitational early on in the season. We went to the Rich Weinheimer Invite in Columbus North High School in Indiana, which is a super competitive regional one, and finished 3rd place out of 21 teams. We were at the Centerville Friday Night Lights with 30 teams, and it was a mud run. There was no, they were covered. It was a mud run. Finished 1st place out in a very talented field. We hosted the Milford Invitational at Live Oaks down the street, which is a phenomenal course. Thank you. Shout out to all the Live Oak folks. But we were 1st place in that event. And then we went to our ECC championships at Lebanon. And the first time in school history, our girls took home the gold and beat the other school in Miami Township that I won't name. And they had won 3 previous years before that. So this is the first time in school history since the league started in 2013. And our league is one of the best all-around competitive sports leagues in the city, so especially in cross-country. So we did that. We did have Elle Campbell, who's a sophomore, was 1st place in the ECC championships. And we had 5 others who were top 20. So if I get this right, Claire was 7th, Shahad was 10th, Mahima 11th, Marin was 12th, and Lauren was 17th. And also Katie Reckman, who was running with our JV squad, was the JV girls champion. Later got on and helped us in our varsity team, which was phenomenal. And also Coach Matt Jordan was the ECC Coach of the Year. So that was ECC. We're far from done yet. Then we went to our district competition, and we were district runners up. We had Elle was 4th overall, Katie 11th, Shahad was 13th, Claire 15th, Mahima 16th, and Marin 20th. So they were 6 in the top 20 in the districts. Then we went to regionals. The top 5 teams made it. We had never gone to state, so our goal all year, obviously, win the league, get to the state meet as a team. And we finished in 4th place in a very competitive Southwest Ohio field, including Elle Campbell was 8th overall in that meet there. So we were lucky to make our first appearance ever in the state cross-country tournament at Fort Obetz this past weekend. So, and the girls there did phenomenal. They were 7th overall as a team in state. And I keep saying her name, but Elle Campbell finished 19th in the state of Ohio out of, it was like 160 runners with a time of 18:08, which is the highest individual finish in program history. And another school record, she keeps breaking her own, but another school record, breaking a record from 2008, Danielle Telting, she was 27th. So we are very proud of you. A year that, like I said, in the 42 years of our girls cross country program, we've never had a year that. So it was an honor and pleasure following you. You have a lot to be proud of it, and just congratulations to you all. And I know there's a couple seniors that are leaving, talented seniors, but we have a lot coming back, so we're excited to make this this run for a while, pun intended on there. So congratulations. Please join me and congratulate them, and then I'll read their names. All right, I have some certificates. So I'm going to call your name if you come up and get here, and if you want to say congratulations to everybody. We'll start off with our seniors, Mahima Vesa. Congratulations. Another senior, Claire McFarland. Go make a round.
Congratulations.
Peyton Dulakis. Congrats, P. Lauren Johnson. Elle Campbell.
Congratulations.
Shahad Masood. Marion Barnett. And Katie Reckman. Congratulations.
Sure can.
Josh Kaufman.
Ask Mr. Zupka if I could hang on to one of his student athletes for a minute. I'm going to ask our featured artist from the high school to come up tonight, if you would, and kind of get ready. Super cool. You know, I think Aaron would say the same. A lot of our students are involved. You guys can come on up, featured artist. A lot of our student athletes are involved in activities and student athletes. One of our students that was a national champion with the JROTC program is also the drum major for the marching band. And then we have one of our students this evening that is on the state cross-country team and is also one of our featured artists this evening. So I love it when we kind of have those crossovers. So I'm going to jump Claire to the front here so that she can dip out for a picture. If I can find your certificate here, Claire. I promise it's here. There, it's the very last one. All right. Claire McFarland is a senior. She is a 12th grader, and her work is... Oh, you have the pottery up front, in front of Mrs. Chestnut. I didn't see your name here. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, now you can, yeah.
Cross-country folks,
Yeah,
parents,
thanks
coaches,
for that.
you follow me for a picture. That way, pictures. I'll make sure everyone's out here. Not the bathroom. There is one if you need it.
A lot of moving parts. Thank you, Mr. Zupka. Thank you. A lot of moving parts tonight. I'm not sure that Lily Schinkel made it this evening. I know we've got a lot of our students are bouncing around to different practices. Lily has the graphic design on the end there. Annalise Hyatt. Annalise, congratulations. Congratulations. Annalise has the photos, the two photos here. My understanding is that this photo, you've actually scratched into the photo. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
It is.
Congratulations.
That is gorgeous.
Tyshonda Smith. Tyshonda has the large pencil work back here. Is that the entrance to the high school? It's beautiful. Well done.
Beautiful. Beautiful work.
Aiden Josephson, senior. Aiden, I've got you right here. Aiden's got the downtown cityscape in motion there.
It's beautiful.
Delaney Glenn, who you can often find on the sidelines of our athletic events. Congratulations.
Beautiful
Delaney
work.
has the football photo in the middle. I've got Cooper McMaster. Cooper's a junior, and Cooper has, I believe, yes, the Penn cat right here, right? Congratulations.
Very nice. Very
And then
nice.
is Ava here to accept for? Yes. So Brendan Arblaster couldn't make it this evening, but Ava's going to accept for Brendan. There you go. Congratulations. Brendan has this pencil or pen dot sketch up here. I'd also like to thank Art Department Chair Mr. Tucker, Mrs. Cohen, who is also here this evening, for doing such wonderful things with our art students at the high school. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of the exciting things going on with our arts. Our band program will be attending Grand National Championships a week from tomorrow in Indianapolis. Indiana, we participate in that every year and are looking forward to that. They'll perform at 6:45 on Friday evening. And they will be doing a community send-off show on Monday evening at 7:30 in Eagle Stadium. So if you've not had a chance to see their performance this year, or if you're looking for something to do, it's a chance to see that in its entirety Monday evening at 7:30. And then on November 19th, we have our junior high band concert in the Z on the 19th. Next weekend, we will have choirs at National Acapella Festival. We have a 6th grade choir concert on November 20th. In the world of drama, Little Shop was a huge success. If you are planning to come to Hadestown, the drama production of Hadestown, the second weekend of December, I need to warn everyone. We have 3 performances scheduled, and we have nearly sold out the equivalent of 1 performance. So we are really excited for that. Those performances will sell out. So if you plan to see Hadestown, get your tickets early. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Tyler Arnold.
All right, let's keep this good news report going. There we go. So, here we go, if you click the next one. This year's theme, shockingly enough, is brick by brick at the high school, which has nothing to do with all the construction that's been going on. So, really, it's the foundation that's been laid for us by past teams, teachers, and we're just building upon that. We know that it needs to be done methodically, but at the same time, we know it needs to be done. Go ahead and click for me. This is just a small representation of all the hard work that's happened. This is our state report card. As you can tell, we've had a strong foundation, and the team that we have now at the high school continues to push and find new ways to be creative and achieve and put opportunity for all of our students. Again, we're a premier district. We're a premier high school in Cincinnati. I always like to joke that the score up there, the top 12, is not true because 2 Kentucky schools are included in there, so we're top 10. But what does that mean? We're competing against Mason, Indian Hill, the Marymount, so we're doing everything we can to make sure we are a premier district. We have the arts opportunities, as Mr. Kaufman said, are through the roof. And we're very thankful to have the Zamudio Theater because that is world class right there. Our facilities allow us to compete with the top tier Division I schools in the state of Ohio. In addition, our academics. We have so many opportunities at the high school, and we continue to try to find new ways to reach our students. Go ahead and click. This is a big thing for us: education, employment, and enlistment. We want to make sure that students have and find every opportunity to meet teachers, but also know what classes they're going into. Last year was our first crack at this, which was our scheduling fair. It went well. We think kids got an opportunity to see all the offerings at the high school, and we want to make it even better this year. I added this thing for Champion for Students because this is an important piece to that ideology behind the scheduling fair. We want each and every one of our staff members to know the importance of what they do for our students, the relationships they build, and that goes into the trust that we put into building this culture that we have. Important piece here, AP. We last year were silver, this year we're gold. Why are we proud of that? Because if you don't notice, 2 of those scores right there are platinum. And we were like, why aren't we platinum? The reason being the top one right there, we were off just a little bit. We needed a few more kids. I think it was 36 more kids to take AP classes to achieve that platinum status. But we're very proud of what we're achieving because the next slide will show you that, again, 51% of the 2024 graduates at Milford High School got a 3 or above, which, if you don't know, generally speaking, if they attend a school within the state of Ohio that's accepted as college credit, most schools outside of the state will accept it with a little push. Another piece, we know how important it is to be partners with our community. With that being said, we felt like it was a one-sided relationship we were always asking. So last summer in June, we brought in about 30 community partners and said, how can we work together? So they've been great with getting us different opportunities in terms of service. Internships is something that we're looking to add, but in addition, they've been tremendous in helping us offset some of our costs with simple prizes. They helped with our senior event where Chick-fil-A actually provided a number of sandwiches for us. Just little things, but with that being said, we want to continue to find ways that we can give back as well. This is something, again, that I'm very proud of. I've never had this up in Central Ohio before I came down here, and I'm proud of what it's become. Again, as you can tell, we're extremely proud of all of our students who decide to go on and serve our country. We're one of the only districts that I know of that actually does a recognition ceremony to make sure those kids feel honored and understand the importance of what they're doing. PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention Systems. Not a lot of people know what this is. We try and get that information out there. What this is just trying to find ways to reach kids and make sure that we're doing everything in our power through multiple tier systems to support them. Tier 1 is every kid. Tier 2 is that next layer, and Tier 3 are your most severe kids. With that being said, this is the first year we've ever applied for this award, and to get a silver is phenomenal. Most high schools in the state of Ohio don't do this because it's just too hard to achieve. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, but we also know the opportunity that presents our kids. We have lots of check-in and check-out students. Just creates that relationship piece that goes a long way in establishing and making sure they feel supported. And again, these are just some photos, again, personally taken because I love going to these events, but you can see all the things that we have to offer. Not all the sports teams are on here, but things that we're really proud of. Again, the state championship, volleyball making it to the Sweet 16, the JROTC, and something near and dear to my heart is our unified cheer. And then the arts. As you know, they said it before, academics, arts, and athletics, the 3 A's. If you didn't get a chance to see the show, it was phenomenal. Little Shop of Horrors, our band, last Saturday was amazing, and I can't wait to go to nationals and see them compete. Blink was one of their best shows. If you guys didn't see, they had this huge volcano that had smoke coming out of it, phenomenal. And again, just an array of different things happening at Milford High School. What it boils down to an amazing staff and students and buy-in from the community. So thank you so much, and we appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Arnold. Lastly, in our presentations, President Chestnut, members of the board, I have a prepared statement that I'd like to read for you and for the community. While the outcome of the 1% earned income tax wasn't what we had hoped for, our commitment to Milford students remains unwavering. Our focus on providing quality education and support to our students is as strong as ever. We're profoundly grateful for the passion of our staff, our families, and the community and what they have shown us throughout this process. The dedication and hard work from so many of you has been very inspiring. Together, we have built a school district we can all be proud of and will continue to take pride despite the challenges that we face. As we look to the future, Milford Schools leadership is prepared to implement the adjustments outlined in our October board meeting, which include transitioning to sister grade band schools, pre-K to grade 1, grades 2 through 3, and grades 4 through 5, elimination of all-day kindergarten, adjustment to our transportation state minimum requirements, and an increase in pay to play. Our community will start noticing these updates reflected across district-wide communications on our website and in upcoming registration forms. Right now, we're dedicated to ensuring a smooth transition to sister grade banded schools. To help facilitate this transition, we will soon be launching a community and staff frequently asked question FAQ. This will provide a space for families and staff members to submit questions, share feedback, and raise any concerns they may have about the new structure. Additionally, I will be hosting several financial listening sessions to hear perspectives from all sides of the earned income tax. These sessions will allow us to gather insights and better understand how we can serve our entire community. We plan to host 8 sessions across our different school buildings and virtually hosting them as well over the coming months to ensure that we effectively address our community's needs. Once the voter turnout data is available to us, we will review it as well as to further inform decisions and our direction. While these changes do not reflect the outcome we aspire for our district in any way, shape, or form, I do believe that we owe it to our community to be good stewards of their tax dollars. We are committed to allowing proper time for these adjustments to be made thoughtfully in the coming school year. Thank you.
Information for those sessions will be on the website.
Yes, so we're still formulating. We wanted to make sure that we get ourselves a new treasurer as well, hired this evening, and then we'll work with the treasurer to formulate dates, and we'll push that out to all aspects of social media, et cetera.
That brings us to our first public participation. Do we have public participation?
Yes, we have one right now. It's, Morris Lazinski.
Good evening. Is this on? I would like to first applaud the superintendent, the administration for acknowledging what came about on Tuesday and that the levy didn't pass. I also want to thank all the voters in the community. Almost 26,000 of you turned out for the levy, record numbers. But at the same time, I think we as a community need to listen to the voters. We lost 58-42. I'm chairperson of Partnership for Milford Schools. And I think because we lost by such a majority, we need to slow down as a community. We need to do what was just outlined by the superintendent. We need to listen. We need to find out from everyone, not only yes voters, but also no voters. What do we want the community school district to look like, to function? And I think so. Number one, we need to make sure that we have those forums, we have the surveys, and we listen to people. Secondly, I think we need to put the cuts in place. They were defined, they were approved, voted on by that board, by the current board. They need to be implemented. And then thirdly, the suggestion from the PAC is that since we have a new treasurer being officialized this evening, we need to go out and get the state performance audit. There was so much criticism by individuals through social media, but criticism about what we're not doing right. Let's get the audit. Let's find out how we align and what improvements we, the community, the administration, the board need to make. So I think it's important that we do those three elements: listen, make the cuts, and get the performance audit. And lastly, I said this before, we need to get the community involved. You know, whether it's another advisory committee that was put together, it was called the CAT back in 2019 when the middle school bond first failed. Let's get community members, leaders together, and we as a PAC are willing to be part of that group, but we need others, and we need individuals that not only have an opinion, but have an answer, that have some action plans, that want to learn what the school system and how they function, rather than just telling us that they're not going to accept the levy. And lastly, from us, we don't believe that we should rush into another levy this coming May. So just wanted to share with you what our perspective. We're very involved, and we wanted the community to understand that we do believe that this is a great community. Thank you.
Any others?
That's all we have.
That brings us to the next Board of Education business, which is the treasurer's contract. So just, can I get a motion to approve the contract for our new treasurer, Doug Ackerman?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions before let's vote, and then we can introduce Mr. Ackerman. Can you please call the roll?
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Welcome. Would you like to come up, Mrs. Berkeley, or Mr. Ackerman, or say a word?
Sure if this is on or not.
I think it is.
Is this on? Okay. My name is Doug Ackerman. I am a resident of this district, and I am extremely excited to be here. I know there's a lot of work to be done, but I am willing to dive in there with you. I agree with all the statements that have just been made, and I see positive things coming. I think we can do everything that you want to do and everything that the board wants to do. So my door is always open. I believe in one-on-one because I know it's very hard through social media or, keyboard, things like that. Please come and see me. I would love to listen to whatever you have to say. So again, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
wanted to say a few words as well. For anybody who has done a treasurer search, which hopefully not many of you have done, it's a pretty slim picking. So when Mr. Ackerman applied to the position, he comes to us with years of experience. He's worked through tough financial pictures from his previous district, and he is born and bred and lives in Milford, so a loyal Eagle. I think a lot of good components. We were very lucky for him to apply and accept our position, and we look forward to upward and onward from here.
I would just add that I was, my duty was to check Doug's references. And when I called people, they were all glowing. They couldn't go on, they couldn't say enough. And one thing they each separately said is he will be loyal to the district. He was asked many times to leave his district, and he wouldn't until we got him out of the fiscal caution that they were in. So I think that longevity and that loyalty will just be a boon for us. So thank you.
And I just want to say, welcome home.
One thing that stood out for me in Doug's interview was that he said that he really finds it very important that everybody understands school finances and that his door is always open and that he wants to explain finances in a way that people understand, and he will explain them over and over until we all understand as a community and as a board. So I think that's very helpful to our district, and I'm very excited to work with him.
And he likes pie charts. Yay.
That's right, he does.
Expect more pie charts in the future. Well, thank you, and once again, welcome. Interim treasurer, you have, well, first let me get a motion to approve the treasurer's reports as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you very much. Mr. Unversah, would you like to tell us a little bit about the board report? Or
Yep.
do we
So
need to
we
approve?
only have the one board report. It's the August cash reconciliation.
Okay.
It's what we reviewed at the Finance Committee, so no changes there. Very close to September. We worked on it today, so we're very close to having those, the month of September closed, and then we'll be working on October. So hopefully get things up to date very quickly, so Doug can hit the ground running here.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions about that report? Please call the roll.
Ms. Will?
Yes.
Ms. Powers?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason? Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
All right. We have,
Five-year forecast time. Let me get a motion to approve the five-year forecast.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Tell us what the numbers say.
all right. Does this work, Steve? All right, let's do this. All right, so I put together, I'm going to grab this out. There we go. So I put together a PowerPoint. I thought it'd be a lot easier to break it apart than look at a giant spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers. Am I working? There we go. This is the first graph, and this is if the levy, well, the levy not passing and the cuts made that Superintendent Spicer talked about tonight. As you can see, once we get to the end of the 5 years, we are in the red. We are deficit spending every year. You're going to see a little blip there in FY26. You see a little bump. That's from the cuts being made. So it doesn't fix our problems. It just gives us a little more room by a few months. So it's not extending. It's not going to keep us from running a levy. If the levy, there is no levy passed, there would have to be additional cuts made. This is the yellow is our expenses, and the revenue is in the blue. As you can see, relatively flat. This does not include passing of a levy. And this is with cuts made. So you see in FY26, you see the graph, the top graph just kind of dips down a little bit. That's the cuts being made. And that is approximately 36 teachers. John and I talked tonight, it's going to be between 30 and 36 teachers to do the sister schools. And that would be salaries and benefits. That also includes reduction of transportation and increasing pay to play. This is our days of cash on hand. So it's very deceiving because Milford looks financially healthy today. But when we look down the road, out to 5 years, you can see we only have 25 days of cash at the end of 2029. And again, this is no levy passed. These are the cuts made, just the one round of cuts carrying through. This breaks down our revenue. 52% comes from our local taxes. And you can see real estate is driving the biggest portion of that. The state is covering 37%, and all of the revenue is 11%. That's going to be interest and some other various revenues there. Property taxes, very flat. Personal utility, public utility, personal property is, we're going to see some increases there, but again, it's not enough of an increase to keep us from making cuts or potentially run a levy in the future. State unrestricted aid, there is, again, it's very flat, not a lot of increases being projected here. The restricted aid, as you can see, it's going down. This is wellness dollars. These are some other things that are going down each year. I think it's also important to note that a lot of what's in the forecast here, I worked with our consultant to proof out from the previous treasurer and carried a lot of these trends forward, looked to see if there's any variances that may change things. There was nothing significant that changed the forecast. These are the expenses. We are at 72% salaries and benefits, which is a pretty low threshold for districts. I know some districts will run as high as 80, 85%. You don't want to be there. That's, you're starting to get more in dangerous territory because you're too heavy in salary and benefits. So healthy here. 19% for purchase services is high, but we also have our Peterman contract is going to be a big percentage of that 19%. Salaries, as you can see, we don't have any large increases here. You will see FY 25 and 26 relatively flat. That is from the cuts being made. So you won't see an increase. So it's stopping the increase, but it's not significantly reducing the overall expense. Benefits, now when you look out to 29, you're saying, well, that's a large jump. This is healthcare. We're estimating 8.5% per year. We did only receive a 4.5% this year. So it's something we're going to have to look at every single year. You could have, I don't think you're going to see a 4.5 again next year, but you could see a 12 or 15 in here. You may only see 8.5. So it's something that we'll have to look at every single year and see how that trend is holding up. I know when I just met with our consortium last week, and they said the average is more like 10 to 15% that they're seeing nationwide for health insurance. So being a consortium definitely helps the district out to keep those costs down. Purchase services, relatively flat. You'll see going from 25 to 26, not much of an increase. That would be the assumption that we can reduce the Peterman contract for busing. This is transfers to the Permanent Improvement Fund. The previous treasurer had these in the forecast. I did increase FY25 because of the traffic light. It's coming in a little more expensive than what we had originally anticipated. The PI fund will be paying off the COPS funding. So keep that in mind. Now the COPS funding will be less than this, but by FY 2030, you'll be around $2.5 million a year for repayment. So this will help build up the PI fund a little bit and give you a little bit of cushion out in 2030, but it's not really building the fund up a lot. As large as this district is, it doesn't hurt to have a little extra money in a permanent improvement fund. I wish this was bigger. I tried to blow this up on a slide as best I could. This is the forecast. This is the top section of the forecast, and this is showing your revenue. And so the top line is your general property tax. You can see it was flat line. So all these, you've seen all this in graphs at this point. And if you look down at the bottom line, that's your total revenue. As you can see, there's no income tax in this portion of the forecast. Now at the end, I'll show you where it pulls into the forecast. So again, revenue fairly flat. Your expenses, you're going to see from 25 to 26, the top line personnel services, that is salary. It is relatively flat, and that's making the assumption that we're going to cut between 30 to 36 teachers. Benefits, again, relatively flat because of the cuts being made. And the rest of the forecast basically follows the graphs that we just saw. Now down below, you'll see the operating transfers at line 5.01. That's that 2.4 million all the way across. Now it's something the district could look at and say, we only want to put enough in there to pay off the cops and the traffic light. You can do that, and that's a decision that may have to be made to reduce the amount of cuts you have to make. So something to think about. All right, the next one. This is basically the summary of the bottom line. The top gray line, line 6.1 or 01, that is how much money are we spending or bringing in versus how much we are spending. And you can see FY25, we're going to deficit spend by about $4 million. And then with the cuts made, we're only going to deficit spend by a little over $3 million in 26. And then you'll start seeing it compound. You go to $5 million, $5.5 million, $8.5 million, almost $12 million overspending. And that's with the cuts being made and carried forward. The cash balance is the blue line down below. We look healthy right now. We had almost 40 million last year. We're going to have almost 36 million at the end of this year, and 32 the following year. And you can see we get to FY29, $6.6 million left over. So we're not out of cash, but the cuts being made allows us to get through FY29.
If we look at 2029, that number, do you know about how many days of cash that is?
Yep, well, I'm going to show that in just a moment. Yep. Did we cut that out? I had the days. Did you pull the days of cash out?
We
Was
saw
it
it
next?
earlier.
Oh, was that? Did I go? Oh,
It was orange.
it was up here at the front, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There it is. 25 days. All right, key takeaways. These were, I brought these forward from the previous treasurer, just as reminders. Deficit spending began in 2021. Note that in 1920, we only had excess revenue of almost $3,000. So we were flatline, break even in FY21. May of 2013, we had operating levy, and they've stretched it 11 years. So it's a long time to stretch a levy. District continues to identify further efficiencies and will report back to the Board of Education for upcoming work sessions. That is a carryover that we probably should have deleted out. But there will be definitely recommendations coming. Any questions regarding the forecast?
Just two quick ones. On your first slide where we're talking about surplus versus shortfall, when we look at those numbers at the bottom, those are fiscal years, correct? Or are they school years?
Fiscal years.
Okay. So what would the school year translate to?
So that would be the 28-29 school year.
Okay. And on the next slide, with the expenditures, we see the expenditures going up. When you did a deep dive into that, it looked like a lot of our expenditures were flat. So when we're looking at these expenditures going up, is this due to, I'm assuming, like inflation, benefit costs going up?
So, you know, all the small bumps, they compound. And so the benefits, you're looking at 8.5%. That's a large amount on that. Dollar-wise, it's going to be a large amount. With purchase services, supplies, we're in that 3 to 4% range. Salaries, We're just following the standard averages there. I think it's going to be around 2%, if I recall, as a standard average. Supplies, you're not 3%. A big cost increase, though, is the transfers. So that's the largest thing in comparison to previous fiscal years, because we have the COPS refunding to pay.
Well, thank you.
And something we also need to look at refund. We have opportunity to refund some bonds. That's something that Doug can look into that will save a couple $1 million over the life of those bonds. So there will be another savings there. Will not be immediate savings, but the life of those bonds have potential to save quite a bit of money.
Can you go back a slide real quick?
Yep.
Just wanted to mention, actually forward 2.
This way?
One more.
One more.
Keep going, sorry. One more. One more. And one more. All right, so, Alan, you had mentioned that this was fairly flat, and I think it's important to recognize that the Fair School funding formula, we are heading into years 5 and 6. It is important that the community reaches out to Representative Schmidt and Senator Johnson to ask them to fully fund years 5 and 6, even though the Fair School funding formula does not help Milford. It is important that that year 5 and 6 gets funded. And again, you can see that the state aid is flat, so we're not growing there. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you for putting that together. Thank you for helping us continue along as we were between treasurers. We could not have done this without your assistance. So.
I greatly appreciate it. It's been absolutely wonderful to work with this board and the administration here and the team. Looking forward to transitioning over to with Doug and getting the district headed in the right direction. And I think you already are. So,
okay. Thank you.
absolutely, very appreciative. So thank you.
Any other comments before we already approved this motion?
Yeah, we have to take a vote on this,
Okay.
and then we have a contract. It's the food service contract that needs to be approved.
I'll call the roll for the forecast.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the contracts as listed?
So moved.
Second.
Can you tell us a little bit about the RES contract?
Yeah, we reviewed this in the Finance Committee, and this is a contract with Right at School. It's a food service contract. So it's allowing us to provide services to this entity.
Yep. So,
Right.
any questions, comments? Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Mrs. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Mr. Spicer.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, President Chestnut, members of the board. We do have a middle school update. Jeff's got some great pictures for us. We had some wonderful tours with our staff this past Tuesday, and very exciting times. Mr. Jeff Johnson.
Again, I keep coming up here every month and talking about how the weather's not good for our lawns, but it is good for construction. So things have been going well. This is a picture of the brick in the courtyard. I wish the picture really did it justice as we went through and gave teachers and staff tours on Tuesday. I kind of opened up the door and they were like, oh, wow. You got a lot of wows seeing the brickwork being done. This is the main courtyard in the academic wing. This is the brickwork. Obviously, there's still some scaffolding. I've got to turn this on in order for it to work. There's still scaffolding up. They're still finishing up some things. But this is the north side of the academic wing. You can see they still have some openings up. That's for still getting material and stuff inside the building. They'll come back and they'll finish that stuff up. But it's really starting to look sharp. As we move on, some of these updates and pictures I'm going to give, it's hard to get, like the aerial pictures aren't going to look very different until we start doing more site work in the spring. So I thought I'd show some of kind of the detail work. This is actually flashing as the brick goes up. So this is your block wall we've been staring at for a long time. You've got insulation, you've got flashing, these are windows right here. So that's some of the detail work that's going on as all that brickwork and that building gets constructed. Air handlers are going in, all the air handlers are in town. They've started, I think we've got 4 of them on site already being put together, and the other ones will start coming in over the next week or 2. This is from the cafeteria looking up to the 2nd floor. This area right here is where our learning stair will be. So it'll come from up here on the 2nd floor down, and it'll land about right here. This is our gateway to engineering. It's all studded out right now. You get an idea of, we've planned out for all the computers and everything. You can see those are all electrical outlets so that we can plug in all the computers and things that the kids will need in that area. So this is an equipment pad. We've got 2 of our air handlers. All of our equipment sits on a 4-inch concrete pad, so it's not just on the slab. This one, and there's another one that actually sit over an academic wing, so they put sound isolation in here. So they put this material in here to isolate it from the slab, came in and poured concrete on top of it, and then the air handler will go on top of that. Is that it? All right. So I can't remember sometimes how many we do, but no, construction's going really well. Again, the weather's been good. We talked a little bit last week. We'll approve later on tonight the change order to get the official completion date to August 1st, and everything is cruising right towards that August 1st date.
Will there be
Go ahead.
open house for community ahead of actually opening?
For the existing junior high or the middle school?
The new middle school.
Realistically, I agree. We haven't talked a lot about this. The reality is that it will probably be after the start of school, just because of it's going to be kind of crazy in August coming up. But yeah, I think we probably will we'll have an open house, but again, I think it'll probably be like in the September timeframe, and we'll talk about that as we get closer. I know we have talked about doing another open house for the existing junior high in the spring, so people who were not able to come to the one we had in August could hopefully come to the one that we'll have in the spring, but that date's not been set.
So the courtyard, that's going to be grass. Is it all going to be grass in there?
It is not going to be grass. It's going to be probably about 90% concrete. There's a smaller one off the cafeteria that will be all concrete. There is some ground cover type low maintenance vegetation that's in there, but the majority of it will be concrete.
Oh, and then one more question. So after we have the school up and everything, the next step is to demolish the old junior high building. That's correct?
Yes, the schedule's not exactly been set yet. I mean, we obviously have to move out of the junior high first. Get furniture out. We're reusing a fair number of furniture and equipment that's in that building. We're also working with our local first responders, the city of Milford and Miami Township, to do some safety training in that junior high before they tear it down. Then once they're out of there, there's an abatement process that has to go on for any hazardous materials that's in the building, and then they'll start tearing it down. My gut right now tells me that'll probably start happening around the 1st of July, but again, those dates we haven't really fleshed out that schedule yet.
Anything else? And Mount Milford will go away?
Yes, Mount Milford will go away. It's topsoil that gets spread out across the site. People who are paying much attention to it can see that it's probably a third to a half of what it used to be, and that's because of all the site work we did, around the parking lots and redoing circulation around the junior high and high school. So that topsoil got spread out and obviously has been hydroseeded, and if it ever rains, we'll get grass there. So.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have a preschool update. A couple slides. All All right, so we do have some preschool priority registration coming up. Wanted to just make sure that everyone knew that for the 25-26 school year, our preschool will be offered in 2 locations. It will be at Mulberry and Pattison, and if your attendance area is Mulberry, Boyd, or McCormick, you will attend Mulberry. And if your attendance boundary is Pattison, Cypelt, or Meadowview, you would attend Pattison. Also, there is priority registration, only eligible for those students that are currently enrolled in our preschool, the Milford Preschool, and that runs from December 2nd through the 20th. So that information will be coming out. And then the general preschool lottery registration will run from January 6th through January 31st of 2025. Hard to believe we're saying 2025. And then, of course, there's a breakdown of our tuition for 3-year-old typicals and 4-year-old typicals. And so there's no preschool tuition required for our students with special needs. So I just want to make sure we have that. And then these are our time windows, our preschool hours, as they are now, would be 9:15 to noon, 1:15 to 4 at Mulberry, and 8:30 a.m. to 11:15 a.m., and 12:30 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. at Pattison. Those times could change if the time changes with our grade banded schools. So it will mirror what the start and the end times will mirror what's happening inside the buildings. And then, of course, Right at School, only our students that are currently using Right at School services will still be eligible to continue those services for the preschool. And again, Right at School is independent of the school district. They just use our facilities. So, any questions on preschool? All right, that was just a quick update. And then also have some policies, second reading for your approval at this time.
Can I get a motion to approve the policies as listed?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? A couple times a year, Mr. Daniels works with
Jen Schaefer.
Yep, Jen Schaefer and OSBA to get the updates of what we need to do coming down from the state. So a lot of these have stuff that has changed at the state that we are now implementing. Also, I appreciate the continued effort to clean things up. Some things are duplicative. We realize they're in a handbook and they're here. So just to be more consistent. So, any questions, comments? Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Chestnut.
Yes. Is all of HR consent?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Can I get a motion to approve human resources items G1 through G5?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Yes?
Yes, I just wanted to, there's a couple retirements that we want to acknowledge. Joy Davis, 24 years of service to the district, as well as Vicki Parker, 30 years of service to the district as well. So we are very grateful for their service to the district and congratulate them on their future retirement.
Yeah. Congrats, that's awesome. Any questions, comments? Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Moving on to business operations, can I get a motion to approve 3 Conger change orders as listed below?
So moved.
Second.
These are for construction, water line, and I'm assuming timeline? Oh, 4, sorry, 4.
The one thing I'd like to highlight, I just want to remind you, we talked about it a little bit last month, about the schedule acceleration. We talked about it last month. These are the actual official change orders. It is a net zero to the contract because we have a $200,000 deduct coming to us, which is a give back from Congress CM contingency that basically then moves over and allows them to use that money for acceleration, which they have as the OFCC contract stipulates. One of the things that they can use their CM contingency for is for acceleration. Because of delays in permitting or notice to proceed, came a little bit later than we desired. We've been working with them for months, always knowing that we wanted to be in this building, needed to be in this building by August 1st. So this is a way of kind of facilitating that, giving Congress some nimbleness to make that happen. They've already started doing that. Our masonry work, our roofing work to get the building dried in has been accelerated. So again, I just wanted to point out and reiterate that this is a net zero to the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve 2 students listed to deem transportation impractical for the 24-25 school year?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement as listed?
So moved.
Second.
Can you tell us a little about this?
So this is the agreement that we will be entering into with the Claremont County TID for the roadway improvements. And I want to call out, this is not just to put a light in at 131 and Eagles Way. These are roadway lane extensions. So we got longer lanes, more traffic. We got to extend the lanes, basically make the 131 and Wolf Pen Pleasant Hill wider. There's also utility work that goes into that. This is an estimate that has been done by the engineer. The Claremont County TID will bid out the work. So there's a 10% contingency built into the engineer's estimate, and then once the work is bid out, will actually be what we would pay. It's not the, you know, if the bids come in lower, we're going to pay lower than what is in the contract.
And this is the traffic light, and all of this is what we've been trying to get for like 10 years.
Yes.
Especially as we look to the possibility that busing will change at the high school, what we offer, parents will be driving. I think this bus, with that possibility, this traffic light's even more important.
Correct.
And this is also what's part of that permanent improvement transfer from general fund.
Any other comments, questions? Call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes.
Ms. Powers,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes. We are to our concluding items. Are there any additional public participation comments?
Yes, Morse has signed up to speak again.
So this will just be quick and short.
Oh.
Just want to, he does it on purpose. Okay, this will be quick and short. Just want to conclude by reminding everybody that we're reaching out to the community members. Let's do this together. Let's define and help the school board, help the administration know what it is that we as community members want the Milford School District to be in the future. So I'm just reaching out, asking people, you know who I am, contact me, contact the administration, contact the school board, but let's get some voices out. Thanks.
That brings us to discussion. Board members, Mr. Spicer, do you have any concluding items for this evening?
I'm good.
I would like to thank a couple people. First of all, the treasurer's office under Mr. Unversal. There's been a lot of change in systems and people. They've been under a lot, and they've been getting payroll out and working to get people paid. It's a big job, and I appreciate the work that they've put in there. And then everybody who helped on the levy. So the people who were in the PAC, the people who were out there, the families who talked to their neighbors, the staff who reached out. It's really important. While I didn't pass this time, it was higher than the last one. So we're getting there, and I believe in the district, and I know that we can get this done. That's my closing. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yep. And Mr. Johnson everyone will be home by the Bengals game. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for December 19th. They're going to be on break by then. In this building, 6 p.m., 1099 State Route 131, Milford, Ohio, 45150. Motion to adjourn. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Will,
Yes?
Ms. Power,
Yes.
Mrs. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut.
Yes.